Now let's get back to events here in Downing Street this evening and earlier this afternoon, of course. Our political correspondent, Ali Fortescue, joins me now. And Ali, we were just talking earlier about the way forward. It does seem a bit clearer. That doesn't mean it's going to go smoothly, but it's a bit clearer.
Yeah, we sort of know how the timetable is going to work now. We know that on Monday, anyone who wants to be the next Prime Minister is going to have to reach what is quite a high threshold of 100 MPs. That potentially puts, for example, Boris Johnson, if he does decide to run, that makes it quite difficult for him to reach that threshold. Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt, just to give you a sense of the schools on the doors at the moment, if I can put it like that, Boris Johnson, we understand 19 people backing him, Rishi Sunak 21, Penny Mordaunt 6. So quite quickly, the numbers could be whittled down. If there are 2 remaining, they will then go on to the membership that will vote online. Some saying, is even a week-long Tory leadership contest going to sow division further in a party that is already very divided?
Yeah. And what about this whole idea of Boris Johnson? What are MPs saying about that, or Tory party members who quite like the idea in a poll that we were carrying 48 hours ago or something?
The polling suggests that Tory party members would want to see Boris Johnson back, and certainly the view on the ground that I was getting over the summer at Hustings was that there was great anger at Rishi Sunak for backstabbing, as some put it, Boris Johnson. I think if it got to the membership, Boris Johnson would stand a very good chance, but MPs, I think, viscerally feel one way or the other. There are MPs who, one told me that he would go if Boris Johnson was on the ballot. So people feel very strongly against Boris Johnson. Then there are those, and we've seen, Nadine Dorries, probably the clearest example of those that really want him to come back. And of course, he is the one that has that extraordinary mandate from the electorate. So strong feelings, I think, on both sides when it comes to Boris Johnson.
But from what you're saying, I mean, these divisions and these splits within the Tory party, which existed for years, it's difficult to see them going away with a contest like this next week.
I mean, the one thing everyone that I was speaking to today says they want this to be smooth, they want to rally around one person, but people right now feel quite strongly about who that person should be, people becoming sort of entrenched in their positions. I wonder if we will see more people rallying around perhaps Rishi Sunak, if there's a sort of wave this evening of MPs that come out backing him. It's hard to know, but I think whatever happens, there will be people that disagree with who is the next Prime Minister, and whoever becomes the next Prime Minister has a big job on their hands.
And I guess the pressure to get a unity candidate, as Lord David Howell was saying earlier, this is a ticket that will bring stability. The pressure will be increased by all these calls for a general election, which the Tories are not going to concede, it seems, but it's in the back of their minds.
Yeah, and I think those calls will become increasingly deafening. As you say, Labour, SNP, of course they want a general election. Labour are riding high in the polls. Whoever becomes Prime Minister would be pretty mad to do that. Christopher Chope were saying the first Tory MP has publicly said that he wants to see a general election. So one Tory so far that wants to see a general election. But I mean, that would be madness. I think they'll hope they can try to build back stability by the time we get to the next election. But it has not been a good few months for the Tory party.
And I was watching your report just a little earlier on Liz Truss's premiership and political career. I mean, it has, it's been and gone very quickly.
It's been an extraordinary 44 days. She is officially going to be the shortest-serving Prime Minister, the last person to be the shortest-serving Prime Minister, Lord Canning, in the 19th century, who died in office after 119 days. So she is by far the shortest Prime Minister, and it has been 44 days of chaos, really, infighting, briefings at the party conference, sacking her Chancellor, losing her Home Secretary. It has not been a good 44 days. She came out saying that she'd become Prime Minister at a time of great economic and global instability. Well, I think that is true, but it's also true that hers will be a premiership, I think, that will not go down in the history books as a good one.
And, I mean, it's been weeks of turmoil, but the last 48 hours, well, really, last 24 hours, I mean, yesterday was really quite an extraordinary day in British
Yeah.
politics.
Yeah, so Prime Minister's questions, I think, people thought she actually, under the circumstances, performed all right at Prime Minister's questions. She said she was a fighter, not a quitter. But then things began to unravel in an extraordinary way yesterday afternoon. We had the Home Secretary leaving with a damning letter, and you sort of thought then that that was the match that was going to sort of light the bonfire, and that this was going to be the beginning of the end. We had these chaotic scenes in Parliament after a vote on fracking. It was a pretty strange, chaotic day. This morning things felt quite calm, but now we know she is going. She has come out yesterday saying she's a fighter, not a quitter. Today, very much a quitter. She will be going, and this time next week, this time next Friday, we'll know who's going to be the next leader of the Conservatives.
Yeah, I mean, when it happened quite quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, it did happen quite quickly. Unlike Boris Johnson, we didn't sort of see her clinging on, waiting for a wave of ministerial resignations. I think that was the direction things were going in. But I think things are different this time, because I think the party wanted to have a plan for what happens next. I think they wanted to know who was going to be the next leader before forcing her out. I think some ministers I spoke to sort of felt that at some point they might have to send a message, but they wanted to have a plan.
Yep, Ali, thank you very much indeed. So it has been yet another extraordinary day in Westminster, and Liz Truss began the day as Prime Minister. Just after 1:30, she resigned, and now, of course, the leadership race starts all over again. And the runners and riders are lining up at the start line. Dermot Murnaghan is next.